you, Napok Ivanok, and welcome to the latest episode of my vlog. I'm here in Budapest in Hungary. I'm filming a commercial here. I'm not allowed to talk about it at the moment, not at least until the 3rd of September when it will be finally released to the public in the UK. But ironically, it's the 28th of July. I'm meant to be filming today, but they had to move the schedule around because we've had some very, very heavy rain here in Budapest. So I am actually sightseeing, and I can think of worst things to do for a living because I'm still being paid for being here today, despite the fact that I got up late, had a nice breakfast, and I've been sightseeing in Budapest for much of today, and it's been wonderful. And let me show you some of the delights of the Hungarian capital in this episode. The river Danube flows through Budapest. You know, that one, yeah. So to the west of the river is the Buda side, and to the east of the river is the Pest side. It is actually pronounced Budapest in Hungarian, but most English speakers will turn that into Budapest. I will stick to the English pronunciation in this video. There are quite a few bridges crossing the Danube in the city, and it takes just a few minutes to cross these bridges on foot. One of the most iconic symbols of Budapest is the Hungarian Parliament building, and the best place to get a great view of it is at Bastion Square on the other side of the river, on the Buda side. So those of you who are fans of the Amazing Race Asia will remember that in Season 2, Leg 9, the contestants had to pick up their clue right here. The clue box was placed conveniently on this very spot so that the contestants can get a great view of the Parliament. This is Fisherman's Bastion, otherwise known as Halas Bastia in Hungarian, and this is a very popular tourist attraction here in Budapest. For those of you who are big fans of the Amazing Race American version, you will remember that in Season 6, Leg 6, this was where the pit stop was. If you remember, I know it was quite a while ago, Season 6, but Laurie and Bolo bounced back from last place to first place after successfully completing the fast forward here. Now, what I like about the Amazing Race is that they always make sure they take you to the most iconic, most beautiful locations in every city they visit. So if you're not quite sure where to go when planning a holiday to Budapest, do check out where the Amazing Race contestants visited whilst in Hungary. A very good reason for you to visit the Fisherman's Bastion is, firstly, it is free to visit, and secondly, the view from up here is absolutely stunning. You can easily spend an entire day in the vicinity of Buda Castle. In fact, some of the oldest part of the castle dates all the way back to the 14th century, so that gives you an idea of just how old the castle is. In fact, some people refer to this part of Budapest as the Old Town, and they would be right. There is plenty to see and do here, including museums, art galleries, restaurants, churches, and other historical sites for you to visit. Some of the old courtyards of the castle have been converted into public parks. So they are very beautiful, but be careful not to get lost when exploring these parks. I think I'm a bit lost actually. Yeah, make sure you get a free map of the city to help you navigate. This is Gellert Hill, one of the highest points in all of Budapest. For those of you who are big fans of The Amazing Race Season 2, you will remember that this is where Alan Wu had his pit stop and he greeted the racers as they finished their leg of the race here in Budapest. And this was also where the Thai contestants were eliminated. Many tourists come up here for the amazing views of Budapest from up on the hill and also to see the famous Freedom Monument here. So, why am I here on Erzsebet Bridge? Well, I'm a big fan of The Amazing Race Asia Season 2, and this is where the fast forward took place, and this very spot is where they had the save, which contained the clue if you could correctly count the number of fence posts on this rather long bridge crossing the Danube. So they had that big showdown between the Singapore boys, Colin and Adrian, versus the Filipino boys, Mark and Rovilson. And of course, the Singapore team triumphed. They managed to count the correct number of fence posts on this bridge, all 2,377 of them. They got the fast forward and won this leg of the race in Budapest. Yeah, I was quite happy just crossing the bridge. I didn't want to count anything. I'm here by the famous Little Princess statue on the banks of the Danube. If you remember in the Amazing Race Asia Season 2, Leg 10, this is where the contestants had to pick up one of their clues. And look, here comes the tram. As you can see, this is why the Amazing Race chose to put the clue box here, so the contestants can get a great view of Buda Castle across the river. As for shopping in Budapest, well, quite frankly, I was not really impressed. Yeah, you get all the same big stores you would find in any major European city, but there were no bargains to be had, and I actually had a rather hard time trying to spend all my Hungarian forints. This is Hungary, otherwise known as the Hero Square, one of the most popular tourist attractions here in Budapest. For those of you who are big fans of The Amazing Race Asia, you will remember Season 2, Leg 10. The contestants came here for a detour. They had to either do the Rubik's Cube, which is one of Hungary's most famous exports to the world, or they had to go around the square and accurately pronounce the names of each and every single one of these statues in order to receive their next clue. As you can imagine, Hungarian is a very difficult language. Now, they may use the same alphabet as we do in English, but they have a totally different set of rules for their pronunciation. So, for example, the letter S is pronounced like a Z in English, and when you see the compound letters SZ, it's actually pronounced like an S in English. So as you can see, this task was not that straightforward. Personally, I was so thoroughly fascinated by the Hungarian language, and yes, I tried very hard to speak Hungarian whilst I was there. Egy kicsit modorú beszélek. Now, very close to Hero Square is the famous Gunde restaurant. In the Amazing Race American version, Season 6, Leg 6, the contestants had to come to Gunde restaurant and drink a particularly spicy bowl of paprika soup before continuing their race. Now, I've checked their menu and no, they didn't have the crazy spicy paprika soup. Close to Hero Square as well is the Városhunyad Castle. Now, I think it is a shame that not many people actually visit this castle. Most people are quite obsessed with Buda Castle, which admittedly is the biggest and most famous castle in all of Budapest, but Városhunyad Castle also is equally charming, a little bit smaller, and today the castle has been converted into various museums, art galleries, offices, churches, and it is free for visitors to walk around and take in the atmosphere. So, if you have already made it as far as Hero Square, come on, it's another 5 minutes walk. It is due north, it is free to visit, and it is so charming. It will be definitely worth the time and effort. It is very easy to make your way around Budapest using their metro system. It first opened in 1896, making it one of the oldest underground metro systems in all of Europe. There are 4 lines and a total of 52 stations, and there you go, that's the system map for you. Some of the lines are a lot older than others, so some of the trains look very modern, whilst others look very historic indeed. It is a very cost-effective way to make your way around Budapest, and you can also buy day tickets, which will enable you to have unlimited travel around the city within a specified 24-hour period. Another very popular tourist attraction in Budapest is the Central Market Hall. Here, you can find all the best Hungarian produce under one roof. Many tourists like to come here to buy souvenirs, and it's not just food. They have handicrafts, they have clothes, and then there is also a food court dining area upstairs. I find the whole area somewhat touristy, and it is not particularly cheap. But then again, hey, you're on holiday, so yeah, maybe you can get the same things a little bit cheaper elsewhere. But the main attraction of the Central Market Hall is of course the size, the sheer variety of the many different stalls selling a wide variety of different kinds of goods. So even if you don't intend to spend any money here, I still think you will have a rather fascinating experience checking this place out. I actually encountered quite a lot of rain when I was in Budapest. Yes, it can rain quite heavily here in the summer months, and I really shouldn't be complaining because I got my extra day off because of the wet weather. And it was an outdoor shoot, so we couldn't be shooting in the streets when it was absolutely pouring with rain like that. So what do you do in Budapest when it is so wet? Well, thanks to the amazing rays, I have a suggestion. Here is an attraction that was featured in both the Asian and the American versions of the Amazing Race when they came to Budapest. This is the labyrinth of Buda Castle. Now, in the American version, Laurie and Bolo had to come here and drink a glass of pig's blood each for their fast forward, and in the Asian version, the teams had to enter the labyrinth and search for a clue in there. I couldn't actually film in the labyrinth because it was too dark, but I thoroughly recommend it because it was oh so spooky. Another place that you can visit if it is raining very heavily is the Dohany Street Synagogue. I'm sure many of you have visited many churches all over Europe, but how many of you have actually visited a synagogue like this? Well, the Dohany Street Synagogue is one of the largest synagogues in the world, and it is the largest in Europe. It seats 3,000 people in the main hall, and it was built between 1854 and 1859. There is also a small museum dedicated to the history of the Jewish community here in Budapest as well as in Hungary. And yes, I found this place thoroughly fascinating. One of the most famous sites in Budapest and indeed in all of Hungary is the Hungarian Parliament building here on the banks of the Danube River. Most people prefer to come here in the day to take photos, but have you considered coming here at night? Now, this was after my rap party. It was about midnight, and instead of taking a taxi back to my hotel, I chose to walk past the Parliament building to see it lit up at night, glistening in the dark. The building itself was completed back in 1904, but it still looks absolutely pristine and in very good condition today because it is the seat of the National Assembly of Hungary. I do hope you have enjoyed my vlog piece on the Hungarian capital, and I encourage you to visit Budapest. Thank you so much for watching. Köszönöm szépen, and sziasztok, guys!